Everybody, I'm JJ. You're watching Reality Survival. Today, I thought I'd go through and answer some questions on a live chat from some of the most recent videos I've done talking about nuclear survival skills and all that kind of stuff. There were several good questions, so I'm going to try to pull them up and see if I can see the comments here on my phone while we're doing this. Okay. All right. So let me look through this first one.
Why doesn't every home in the U.S. have solar?
Stupid ads. All right. So the title of the video that I'm looking at here is how to stay safe from nuclear fallout. So I'm going to go through and just kind of scan and see what that people may have had. Okay, well, okay, I should have probably highlighted some of these ahead of time. Sorry about that. Okay, let me try a different way here. That's taking too long. Let me go to the comments section in my Creator app here. All right. Okay. Here we go. So maybe an obvious question. What about dogs, family pets, or security pups? Guessing they are affected the same. Do you have to keep them undercover for the same period? Decontamination methods, obvious poop and pee issues in your sheltered area. Any thoughts? Yeah, so that's pretty good. That's a good question, man. Yeah, that's from JL. And you're really going to have to treat that the exact same way that you treat your family members, essentially. If you want them to survive, it is possible that you could build a their dog house. Like, let's say just dogs, for example. If you wanted to build a dog house that would, out of like cinder blocks filled with sand and all that kind of stuff, and make it sort of a really resistant kind of shelter, and then put a bunch of food and water inside the shelter. Maybe leave them in there a couple days at a time. You could go out, come out of your shelter after 2 days, go give them some real quick food, assuming the door was locked and they were locked in there. That's a pretty extreme kind of situation. Otherwise, you could bring them into the shelter with you and your family. But if they just get left out in a normal environment, once the fallout comes, they are going to have some long-term issues probably, because they're going to be exposed to the fallout, and they would probably take lethal doses, unless, like I said, they had something to keep them somewhat covered from it, and it would you wouldn't have the benefit of distance. If you haven't watched the videos that we did talking about distance, you really need to try to be 10 feet from the fallout if possible, and or have a lot of shielding. If you didn't have one or two of the other, if you didn't have if it was a doghouse outside, obviously you couldn't make it 30 feet big. That would be ridiculous. So that would mean that you would need to have cinder blocks filled with sand, or maybe a couple of feet thick or something all the way around. That would be the most expedient way I could think of to do it. But most likely for most people, they're probably just going to bring them in the shelter with them. Now, as you correctly noted, you are going to have to deal with the poop and the pee and all that kind of stuff. If they're trained to maybe you could try to train them to, like a cat, to pee in a litter box or something. I don't have any idea if that's even possible, man. I think it's probably just going to be a mess, and you're going to have to probably make sure that you've got some way to clean up that stuff inside of your sheltered area. Okay, another question here from James M. He says, good info on how to decontaminate clothing or other gear like respirators. So really all you got to do is, it's pretty simple. You take it off, you wipe it down, like if there was a respirator or something, you just wipe it down. Fallout is essentially dust or sand. Actually, sand is probably more appropriate for the bigger particles, and dust for the smaller ones. But all you have to do is just wipe it off or get it off. So you could rinse it away, you could wipe it away, you could shake it off, you know, whatever the case may be. Just make sure when you're doing that you have a respirator on, so that you don't breathe in any of those particles. Okay, that's the main thing. And it's not like if you do breathe in some that you're going to die immediately or something. A little bit inhaled is not going to be a big deal. It's not going to be, you know, immediately lethal or anything like that. But you do want to try to avoid it. You want to try to avoid breathing that stuff in. So basically, you just rinse your gear off, you wipe it off, you know, just as if it was covered with dust. And then whatever it is that you use to wipe that stuff off, realize that that is contaminated with the fallout. And so you want to kind of put it someplace else in a pile or whatever until you clean all those up, you know, as well. And then any water that you get from that, from the rinsing and the wiping off and all that kind of stuff, that is also contaminated. So you want to make sure you throw that outside as well. But you really don't have to have anything special. It's just wiping it down, wiping it off. That's all it takes. Okay, let's see what else we got here. Christoph Atlas says that your overall health is going to play a huge factor in how well you can weather radiation. That's true. So trying to get in shape and all that kind of stuff is important. Okay, so Jenny Barnes says every first aid kit should have a 10 cc catheter tip syringe to use for accurately measuring. How do you know when to take the potassium iodine tablets? So basically, as soon as there's a detonation, if it's you know, anywhere remotely close to you, then you want to just go ahead and start taking it. And you could take it for up to 10 days, if I believe. But make sure you follow the instructions on the container. But yeah, it's just basically as soon as there is any potential that you're going to be around fallout, okay, that's when you want to start taking it. Okay. So the feathered something, I'm not sure what the rest of his name is, said he was looking for me to talk about more about your body and how to prepare your body, and I published a video earlier today on that, so you can check that out if you want. If you guys, I'll go through once I'm done looking at these comments, and I'll go through the chat. If you want to try to get my attention, hit me with a super chat or hit me with the at Reality Survival or all caps or something, because I can't go through and read everything all that fast. All right. Okay, trying to find, see if there's any other new ones here. Okay, so Marco says on this one that you don't want to have babies, much less try to raise anything else out in a fallout area, because you might get mutations and whatnot. So it is possible that with heavier doses of radiation you could get sterility, but that is generally temporary and it doesn't generally last. And there's no evidence that after your fertility returns that you would have any problem with raising kids. Nothing that I've seen talks about that anyway. Let's see. What is this? Okay. Sorry, I'm just trying to catch these on the fly here as I can. Ubermensch says, depending on distance to the blast zone will dictate meteorological activity, i.e. wind and speed direction. Yeah, that's true. I've kind of tried to relay that in each one of these videos, that it all really depends on the wind and speed and all that kind of stuff, and the detonation yield and everything like that. Okay, sorry. All right. Yeah, so Dr. Prepper says, talking about the older equipment that I showed you guys, this older stuff here, he said, unless you have that stuff checked, calibrated, you probably shouldn't rely on it. And I think I tried to relay that in the video as well. That is true. I just spoke to the folks down at their website is ki4u.com. And they do calibration tests and stuff like that on it. They said as of right now, they're about 30 days out in getting those calibrations done. So I'll probably send those out here before too long. All right. Yeah, this is a good point here. Tom Hickman says that you should also realize that exposure to large amounts of gamma radiation will lower your immune system's ability to produce white blood cells. You'll be more susceptible to getting sick from things in your body already, such as chickenpox virus, varicella zoster virus. They remain latent in the dorsal root ganglia. Yeah, it's a decent point to point out. I think the main thing to think of is try to shelter yourself in such a way that you don't have to worry about getting hit with high doses of gamma radiation. That's kind of the main kicker there. And you can also do things to try to keep robust and all that kind of stuff with taking multivitamins and vitamin C and all that kind of jazz as well. Frugal Mom says, oh, that was on a different video. That was on the how to get ready for a cyber war. She said that have your medical information backed up offline and have emergency and extra meds on hand. And that's a good. Okay. Okay. All right. I'm gonna check the chat before it gets too crazy. See if there's anything. All right. The Kraken, he says, how about Warren Air Force Base? What about it? I don't know. I don't know which question is. Bubba. Hey, what's going on? Doug Meredith, thanks for watching. Twigs24 says, will I grow a third arm? No, unfortunately you won't. David Jones says, hi from Canada. Billy Rose says, anybody in the group have a source for potassium or Ki? Check the description of the video that I published earlier today, and there are 3 websites to the 3 FDA approved websites for selling potassium iodine. Thyrosafe.com, I think, and I don't remember the other two. ThyroShield, I think, .com is the other one, and then I'm not sure what the third one is, but they might have some. I don't know for sure. I'm pretty sure on Amazon it's all sold out at this point. Matthew Trapp, hello from Indiana. What's going on, man? Flinch AOM says he's going to get a solar generator. That's smart. Andrea says she has 2 big dogs. It's going to be really difficult to keep them locked up indoors. It's up to you. It's what you want to do. Yeah, that's your call. Okay, so Starring Roma says, what about New York City apartment buildings? Can we shelter there? Yes, you can. New York City is probably the single most likely target in a nuclear attack. I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean, I don't mean to scare you or anything like that. It's just that that aside from Washington, D.C., New York City is probably the second on the list, highest potential targets. And the reason is because it's our financial center. And so still doesn't mean that you wouldn't necessarily be able to survive depending on where you live in New York and all that kind of stuff and where it went off and how big of a bomb and everything. What you want to do is you want to try to be find a shelter place in the center of a building that is at least 3 stories up and 3 stories from the roof. So, you know, like if it was a 10-story building, if you could get a place in the center of the building on the 3rd, 4th, or 5th, 6th floor, something like that, then that's going to offer you really the best protection. If you can't do that, then you go, if it has a basement that's below grade, that would be even better. Obviously, the risk or the concern with taking shelter like that is that if the building sustains serious damage from the blast and is unstable, you could have concerns with it collapsing while you're in it, right? So that's a problem. And that's why I've been recommending to people, well, it's not, there's all kinds of reasons why I've been recommending people not to live in the city. But they're just really difficult in serious disasters. So if you can move out of the city, that would be a good option. Okay, good question. Vitali M says, how many kilotons are likely to be used and what's the difference on surface and air impact? So there's no way for me to tell you what kilotons or megatons could be used, what size of a yield, because many countries have many different sizes. If you go to nuclearsecrecy.com, that will give you a good variety of different kinds of weapons and what their yields are. It'll also allow you to kind of plot it out on the map and see like how much and what the fallout would look like and all that. That's a pretty good site to get an idea of, you know, what you'd have to deal with. Now, the difference in surface impact and air impact or an air explosion. So when you have a nuclear bomb actually hit the ground and blow up, that is going to probably cause the most amount of fallout. However, it's going to cause a lesser amount of blast damage and ground damage at ground zero, because a whole bunch of it gets absorbed by the ground, basically. But it's going to cause a much worse situation with fallout because it's kicking so much crap up in the air and up into the atmosphere and all that kind of stuff. So the fallout would be really, really bad from a ground impact. An air burst of, you know, a medium height somewhere, you know, maybe 500 to 1,000 feet. I don't really know what the exact detonation is, but sort of the optimum detonation is slightly above the ground, and that will give a very serious effect to the ground as far as the blast damage goes, but it also kicks up quite a bit of fall as well. So that's sort of the preferred method of detonation, is just, you know, somewhat above ground, and I'm not sure exactly what the elevations are, but, you know, say 500 to 1,000 feet, I don't know. Then you have high altitude. You have high altitude bursts that might be as high as 200 to 300 kilometers up in the atmosphere, and those don't cause really any fallout and don't cause any ground damage or blast damage, but what they do cause is an EMP, or an electromagnetic pulse. Basically what happens is all the ionizing radiation that comes out interacts with the ionosphere, and it effect, if my memory serves, as it takes a right angle and that wave pushes out, it creates 3 waves of an electromagnetic pulse. And those 3 waves are essentially really destructive to electronics. It's estimated that 60 to 70% of modern vehicles won't run after they experience an EMP. The grid would be shut down if the detonation happened at just the right place over basically the center of the United States. It could potentially collapse all of the electric grids. It's probably a little bit more likely that if they wanted to be 100% sure that all the grids would go down, I think there's 4 in total grids, then they would probably detonate, 1 over each coast and then 1 in the center as well, so they have an overlapping effect. But right there where all the grids kind of play together in the Midwest is the reason that that one could potentially cause catastrophic and cascading failure with all the rest of them. If you guys are concerned about EMPs, then I can save you $50 on an EMP shield. An EMP shield is a device that you can hook up to your house, you can hook up to your car, and it will essentially shunt all of that additional current and voltage that is coming into either your house and or your car. It'll shunt that to ground really quick, and it keeps your electronics from overheating and your car's electronics from being fried and all that kind of stuff. Now, this is pretty cool. And the reason that I think it's a real thing, the reason I believe that it actually works, is because they have a third-party tester called Keystone Compliance Labs, and they do a bunch of testing for all kinds of people in industry, DOD and government and all that kind of stuff. And they have certified that the EMP shield will work to military specs. So I don't think they would lie about that and risk ruining their reputation for no good reason. You know what I mean? So that's why I trust the things. But you can use the discount code Reality Survival. It'll save you $50 per unit if you're interested. And that is at empshield.com. They're really easy to hook up. I've got some videos on that stuff as well. All right. Okay, let me find out. What did I miss? Okay, your third arm. Sorry if it's coming in choppy, Luz. I don't have a very good internet out here where I live. We're going to be moving pretty soon, so hopefully we'll have better internet at the next place. So Andrea, she says, I have heavy rolls of plastic and several rolls of Gorilla Tape. I don't have a shelter. Go back and watch the videos I did. I created a whole playlist talking about nuclear war survival skills. And you don't have to have a specific shelter. The reason is that if you have a home that is, at least 25 feet wide by 25 feet wide, that's a pretty small area, then what you're going to do is you want to get into the center of that area, and you want to just take your furniture and block around you, have a whole bunch of mass in between your little area and the walls from the outside. If you live on an apartment building, then it's not even going to be as probably significant to have that 10-foot space. It's probably going to be a little less because fallout's probably not going to accumulate in large amounts on the vertical walls. It depends on what your building's made of, but essentially it can be any structure, because the fallout shelter is not something that is built for keeping you alive during the blast of a nuclear, wave. There's nothing you can do to stop that. What the fallout shelter is for is all the dust and the particles and everything that come down after the fact. And you just want to try to stay away from those for as long as possible. The minimum is 2 days. The recommended length is at least 2 weeks. Okay, so it would suck to have to be stuck in the middle of your apartment for 2 weeks, but it's not like you can't get out and go grab something like out of a refrigerator or another room, or you could go go to the bathroom or something real quick and come back. You can do those things. It's just that you're getting some amount of radiation when you do that, right? So you want to try to stay in that center area as much as possible. But as long as you're staying in your house, you could go and move and do things. It's just that You just have to realize when you're doing that, you're taking a higher level of radiation. And so that's why having something like a dosimeter, a radiation dosimeter, or something like that, that'll help you monitor and measure how much you're getting hit with. All right. You know, Andrea, she says, I honestly can't believe we're having this conversation. Listen, the reason that I'm talking about it is because I've actually, it's a series of videos that I haven't done on my channel yet for a long time. And it's because I don't really think that it's very likely that we're going to have to deal with nuclear war. But because of all the stuff that's going on with Ukraine and everything like that, with Russia and all that kind of stuff, and NATO potentially getting involved, and all these companies, you know, putting on additional sanctions, you know, it's not outside of the realm of possibility that Putin could, you know, decide to lob a TAC nuke or something like that, you know, over into Ukraine or something. And who knows how governments respond and everything like that. I still think that likelihood is pretty small. I put it at under 5%. I don't think that Vladimir Putin is a suicidal maniac or anything like that, because I know if he does that, then he has to know that the response is going to be, you know, pretty significant. So hopefully, can you guys still hear me? I don't know, somebody said they can't hear anything now. So hopefully we don't have anything. So I'm trying to, David Jones said, how bad is a interception takeout in midair, like over Canada, 40% get hit? I'm not sure what you're trying to say there, bud. If you could clarify that for me, I'll try to answer, but I'm not really sure. Okay. Ugly is in New York City and worried. Well, but Ugly, I wouldn't be so much worried about the nuclear war, but I'd be more worried about just living in New York City, honestly. That's just me, though. Yeah, that's what I was trying to say earlier. Kathy Little, you can easily train dogs to use potty pads. That would probably be the best answer, and I should have said that earlier. I couldn't think of the potty pads when that's what I was trying to think. Oh, DeKraken has 4 mountains between him and Cheyenne and basement. Good. That's awesome. JUFM says, here's a question. What does everyone's gut say on who would launch first, the West or Russia? So if you, to me, the most likely scenario, if anything, and I kind of just alluded to this, is that if there was going to be some sort of an exchange, my guess on what would happen would be that Putin would probably notify America and NATO that he has decided to launch a tactical nuclear weapon at Kiev. And then, you know, he would say this is going to happen, whether you like it or not. I'm doing it. So how you respond is up to you. And my gut tells me is that they wouldn't make an initial response, and they would just see if he does it. And then if he did, then the whole world would rally against him and try to figure out a way to respond. I don't know for sure that they would respond with other nuclear weapons. I'm not convinced that would happen necessarily. I might be wrong, but oh, that's funny. All right. Yeah, Enoob, he says, I'm not sure how accurate this map is, but he'll take a look. It's pretty close. I mean, it's not necessarily 100%, but it's not that far off either. Not that far off. Okay. Prepper Survival Skills says it's the cleanest tractor that I've ever seen since visiting the dealership and the showroom. That's funny because it's dirty. I mean, it's got crap all over it. And, look and see if you can see the floorboard in there. I mean, it's pretty dirty. I haven't washed it since I got it, I don't think, but I use it all the time. Let's see here. Best Life Adventure says reality survival. Did you already talk about keeping fallout from inside your shelter with an overpressure system? No, I didn't. And that was one of the questions I was looking for. So thank you for bringing that up. Okay, so basically what he's talking about is would it be a good idea to create an overpressure system that basically you'd suck air in from outside and you would run it through a filter. Obviously, you'd have to have some sort of filter, I would imagine, and then you push it out into the room. And the idea here is that you pressurize and a positive air pushing out in your house so that no fallout gets in. I mean, I suppose it's possible, and that is how like some nuclear bunkers and stuff like that have positive airflow systems and whatnot, but I don't think it's really necessary. And I don't, because the old civil defense days and all that kind of stuff that, what they talked about is like for your bunker and everything, all you really need to do is have like a U-shaped pipe coming down into your bunker. And then, the fallout would just fall down around it and it wouldn't get anything in. Now, I would certainly want to have that filtered if it were me, just because the possibility of dust and everything coming in. But to me, if you're running, the big problems with this is going to be electricity. Even if the majority part of the grid is still functional, the part that got knocked out by the nuclear bomb is going to cause a failure, at least for a short period of time, or for, probably a pretty considerable amount of time, considering the radiation and everything like that. So you're probably not going to have power. That's number one. The power is probably going to go out regardless. Just because it's going to knock out so many transformers and all that kind of stuff, that's going to cause a collapse. Then, even if you had your own system or your own power system or whatever, backup and all that kind of thing, I would think that you would want to have it, your house pretty well sealed up and all that kind of stuff. And then if it stops, how does that work for carbon monoxide or carbon dioxide buildup and all that kind of stuff? I don't know. It just seems like there's compounding problems to me, but you really don't have to worry about it. That was some other questions that people were asking the other day, is when I said seal off the windows or the rooms and everything, I think they thought that I meant like create a perfectly sealed cube and stay in that. That's not what I meant at all. All you got to do is just seal off the windows. If you had a broken window or something like that, if it's not broken, then you don't got to mess with it. As long as no dust can come in, no fallout or anything like that. Your house has a certain degree of air that comes through, no matter how well it's built, through the carpet and the floors and the walls and everything. It ain't airtight. Your house is not airtight. So even if you're just covering up windows, you're gonna get plenty of oxygen in the house. You don't have to worry about suffocating. Okay, that was one that somebody else was talking about too the other day. Okay. All right. Sometimes people just like to troll, and it's kind of funny when they do that. All right. Baker298 says, what's your guess on how long until the U.S. sends troops or planes? I do not believe we will avoid this war. I don't think that Biden will send any troops into Ukraine. I don't think that's going to happen. He might build up some troops in NATO and all that kind of stuff as a show of force, but I don't think that he's going to. I don't think that he's going to engage in any kind of actual conflict. Here's why I think that, and I am not a conspiracy theorist, but it seems to me that when this whole thing started up, what seemed obvious to me was that NATO and the U.S. and Russia all wanted this to happen. Now, why? I don't for sure know, but President Macron has already started making calls to unify NATO's military, all of NATO's military, into one military force. And I think what's behind this is that several of the primary NATO countries are wanting to consolidate Europe into the United States of Europe, that kind of thing. And so I think the only people that are really, really unhappy about this whole situation is Ukraine and Moldova, probably, and Estonia and Latvia and Lithuania, because they're probably next. But yeah, all right. Garden of Valhalla. Didn't Clinton sign something that said we'll take a hit? I'm not aware of anything like that personally. All right. No, I don't think so. Well, Dayton Valley Deals says on Fox today, it said we were supplying rockets and jets. Did I hear that correctly? What I think is actually happening is that Poland is going to give some old MiG-29s to Ukraine, and then the United States or NATO, I can't remember, I think it was the United States, is going to give some older F-16s to Poland. I think that's how that exchange was going. And we have been supplying anti-tank guided missiles and those kind of things. Multiple have been. Okay. Happy International Women's Day. Woohoo. Quantum Bob, that's not a bad idea. He said, I was thinking about the floor drain in the laundry room, basement shelter. I would definitely plug it up to make sure no gray water floods into the area. Yeah, I mean, that could be a potential concern. You could also use the drain too, though, for, urination and stuff like that, and cleaning and washing and, all that kind of stuff. So I don't know how I feel about that. I don't know if I'd do both or not. Maybe have the ability to plug it and leave it unplugged if I was using it. I don't know. I'm not sure about that one. Yeah, there is a lot of fake news out there. Dayton Valley Deals. Yeah, DeCracken Crone is a globalist. He sure is. Yeah. And the globalists I think this is their last, they're kind of like their last desperate grab to keep globalism going and to move towards a one world government, because they know that deglobalization is already, I talked about this in another video the other day. Read Peter Zehan's book called, let me see, Disunited Nations. And he explains how and why this is happening pretty well in there. It's the whole Great Reset and everything like that is just nothing more than it's a last dying attempt to try to keep globalism alive, but it's not going to work. Deglobalization is happening, whether anybody wants it to or not. There's no avoiding that, in my opinion. Okay. Yeah, Jeremy, the World Economic Forum, like I said, it's all part of the whole Great Reset, World Economic Forum, all that stuff. They are trying to, I think that their ultimate goal is to try to unite Europe under the United States of Europe. And that would take them one big step closer to a one world government if they could do that. The problem is that the concerns of all the first 15 NATO countries are vastly different than the last 15 NATO countries that were added. And so getting them to unite together, it's going to be it's a hard road to hoe. I don't know that that's going to happen. I really don't think it's going to happen personally. But I think that's what they're trying to do. I don't know if they're going to be successful. Hard to say. International Monetary Fund, I don't think it'll be gone anytime soon. It's a great tool that it's a great tool for countries to use to help countries persuade smaller countries, persuade them to do the things that we want them to do, basically. South Florida DCL, what's going on? I have not read The Confession of an Economic Hitman. Jeremy, is it good? All right. If you got any questions, wrap them up. I'm going to take a quick look and see if there's any other comments that I could find here real quick that I was going to answer. It was taking a long time to do this, and now my internet is not working so great. So, all right. Check these real fast here. Okay, I'll see you there. Okay, don't see any in that one. If you guys got anything, let me know. Okay, I think that's the main ones. Let me check this one last one. And I think we're done here. So, okay, here's one question that came in recently. Edward Kreitenmeyer says, I haven't seen anyone talk about this, what you do with the dead. So I would say that for most people, you're not going to have to deal too much with the dead because the contamination zone is going to be over, for ground zero is going to be blocked off, and you're not going to have to necessarily worry about that. In the fallout areas, you might have, to deal with some of that, but those deaths are not going to necessarily be really quick. They're going to be in varying lengths of time, from weeks to years afterwards, because radiation is not something that, unless it's in a really, really heavy dose, is not going to affect you right away. So probably you just can deal with them just like you normally do. You can bury them, you can burn the bodies, or you could do mass graves or whatever if you had a whole bunch of people to deal with. But chances are it's not going to be as bad as you think. Now, inside the ground zero, there's going to be a problem with that, but much of that, and that is all going to be essentially incinerated with the fireball. So you're not going to have to deal too much with those. Okay, let's see here. All right. So Greg says, what's the difference between nuclear bomb fallout and power plant meltdown fallout? So I'm not 100% sure, and I don't want to answer until I've had a chance to look it up. I was that I was going to look in 100% sure how it's different. I think that fallout from a nuclear power plant is probably going to take us, but I'm not 100% sure. So, and you're probably going to have less fallout from, well, I don't know. It depends. See, the thing is that there's the containment facilities on nuclear power plants nowadays are really, really good. Chernobyl was an anomaly because basically they didn't have a containment facility around it. So I'm not 100% sure, but I'll put that on a list of things to potentially make a new video about. I don't want to comment too much without actually knowing or without actually having a reference for that. So, Sin City Detecting says, I was just reading that Putin has his family in a doomsday bunker. I mean, who would know that? Unless it's being published from his security guards or whatever. I don't know that anybody would be able to know that. So I don't think so. Who knows though? Who knows? All right. I think that's it, guys. I'm going to wrap it up for today. We're hitting about 45 minutes. That's probably plenty of time. Thanks for watching. And as always, if you got any other questions, go ahead and stick them in the comments below and we'll try to answer them as soon as we can. Thanks. Bye-bye.